Why don't we remember our past lives? Well, let's give the simple answer first. The simple answer is because you don't have the power to remember things that far back. It's just that simple. We have this idea, well, I was an adult and I should remember all those things, but this was before you were this, fetus in your mother's womb, which you also don't remember. Everyone can verify for themselves they were in their mother's womb. It's not really, there's ultrasounds and then there's baby pictures of, I have pictures of my birth. I was born in our house at home, not in a hospital, and we have pictures of it all. So I'm pretty clear that I came out of my mother's womb, but I don't remember it. No recollection whatsoever. So that's the short answer, is that it's just too far back. It's before all that. So the long answer is, the long answer is that you can remember your past lives. You just have to work at it, just like with any kind of memory. Now, we don't think of actually working at remembering things because our minds don't work very well in general. When your mind is untrained, when you haven't tried to train your mind, you don't even think it possible. I think memory is something that comes by itself, right? Pops up at times, but you can actually train your mind, and there are people who do it. I mean, we all heard of these people with photographic memories, or people who memorize telephone books. They train themselves by memorizing telephone books, developing this memory. Monks do it as well. They memorize all of the Buddha's teaching, 45 volumes or 40-some volumes, and they brag about this, and we hear about these monks who memorize it all. And then I talked to one of them, or I talked to a monk about it, and he said, "Oh no, they never really remember it all. That's just what they say." He said, "You couldn't remember it all, but you get good. You're able to, you know where everything is, because the point is just to be able to pass the exams, and the examiner can't ask you everything. So you just have to know what he's going to ask you, and you have to know where everything is, and basically get the gist of the entire Tipitaka." Anyway, so they do this, and that's still quite an incredible accomplishment. So the mind can be trained in memory, but it can also be trained to remember things that you've forgotten. It can be trained to go backwards. But you have to work at it really, really hard. And the work is in your meditation. When you practice samatha meditation, you develop yourself, as I was saying, switching objects, then switching jhanas, then switching objects and jhanas. So you'd enter into the first 5 jhanas with the earth kasina, and then you'd enter in the first 5 jhanas with the air kasina, and then the water, the earth element, air element, water element, fire element, and then you'd switch. You'd go first jhana, third jhana, 5th jhana, or something like that. Then you'd switch objects. First jhana, earth element, first jhana, air element, first jhana, and you'd get, you're actually playing this game, and it's scientific. The development, like check, and going back and forth, to the point that your mind is incredibly sharp and able to direct itself in any direction that it chooses. So you're able to develop these states of intense tranquility. And then what you do is you sit down and you think of what you just did before you sat down. And then you think about what you just did before that. And then you think about what happened before that, and you go back like this. As soon as you get stuck and can't remember anything, can't remember something, you stop and you develop the jhanas again. You develop your meditation, entering into the earth kasina, the earth element, air element, fire element, water element. And there's these methods. It's in the Visuddhimagga. You can read about exactly. I don't remember exactly what they do, but it's something about going from one to the other and then skipping and then going backwards and forwards and so on. And you do that again, and then you come back and try and start all over again. Sit down, remember the first thing you did before you sat down and the first thing before that. And with work, eventually you can go back days, months, years. Yeah, it's kind of like regressive hypnosis, except it's incredibly systematic. It's been systematized to the point where it's no longer just chance. And I know people do. I've heard of one man who took the lazy route, and he was actually able to do this and actually able to remember something that seemed like past life. But he did sort of just a hypnosis where he didn't go one moment by one moment by one moment. But technically speaking, that's what you should do. If you really want to be clear about it, you have to be clear that it's going in sequence and remember back, all the way to your birth. And then into the womb. To the point where you can remember what was going on in the womb, all the way back to the point of conception. Now, at the point of conception, it's more difficult. And this is why regressive hypnosis takes several sessions. But as the texts say, eventually you can break through that. And once you've broken through to a past life, it gets easier. And then you can go back further and further, and from one life to the next and so on. Because the familiarity is there. The technique has been learned, and the mind becomes familiar with the technique. So there's the long answer. You can remember your past lives. I mean, we don't remember them now. It's an easy answer because we can't remember that far back, but that's just because of the state of our minds, because there's so much information that we're inundated with that we can barely remember what we did last week. I can barely remember what I did this morning. But if you think about it, you can develop it and you can bring it back. So